This is a second-hand boat owner's biggest nightmare.
Hello.
So just force this out. So I'm going to try and pop that out somehow. Oh, it's super close. So that is how they sealed the inside of the hole there for the engine well to drain. It's like it's I don't know what it's made of. It's like it's not fiberglass, it's like a plastic. But look at this.
Yeah.
That.
It's rotten wood.
It's rotten wood. Let's see if we can lift it down. Bingo. Moment of truth. This is it. Oh, okay. That is toast. So this silicone, so there's a line of clear silicone here that's not that old. What's interesting is that you couldn't get to that without this whole top piece being lodged on, which does concern me to a point that someone's at some point tried to hide this because the silicone all the way along. May have been pushed in somehow, I don't know, but that's not a great sign, but our fears are confirmed. I'm pretty happy at this point that I did not make the mistake of putting a 40 horsepower outboard on that transom, which is what my original plan was. This is demonstrating for me more and more that I need to do proper testing, because when I came through here and hit here, it sounded quite solid, right? And even when I came on the sides, it still sounded quite solid. But you've really got to check everywhere, because down towards the bottom, solid, solid, solid. That's obviously where the floor joins up. Then you get to here, you'll obviously hear the difference there. That is the value in knowing how to check your transom. I obviously didn't in this case. This boat was bought sight unseen, but the big learning here for anyone who is buying a boat is get it properly checked out. And before you buy it, I was looking for a project, so I'm not so worried, but I know there are many people that are looking for projects and do want to buy a boat in good condition. Make sure you get it checked out beforehand, because these things hide themselves very, very well. Alright guys, well I've relocated the boat into a nice space, it's probably a bit better to work in, throwing up some drop sheets, and now we're going to get to cutting out the inside of the transom. So I've decided that I'm going to leave the outside shell, the fiberglass shell of the boat. That's definitely the thickest and the most structurally sound, which means that when I remove the existing transom, hopefully I don't get any morphing or bending of the boat. So we're going to start by taking out the inside of the boat there, and we're going to try and do a couple of little inspections into the actual floor and the hull, see what's underneath that crazy floor, because what my biggest fear with it right now is that there's a couple of stringers there that are rotten out. Now, best case scenario, we cut out the floor, we replace it, we don't need to do anything, but there's a possibility we may have to remove some existing stringers and put in new ones. So let's start by cutting out that transom and checking it out. Cheers. Alright guys, well, I did not see that coming, but there's actually water dripping out of the transom. Literal water dripping out of it. Now, that may have happened since I've removed the cap off the top of it, and it may have gotten water in it, but I don't know how that would have happened. That's very concerning, so it suggests that if it wasn't already ridiculously rotten, which it is, there's even more in there, so yeah. Definitely looks can be deceiving when it comes to transom with boats. Just got to switch this blade around just to get better access. Now the one thing I'll say is I'm using a multi-tool with a fiberglass cutting blade. I didn't originally know about this, but I was watching Boatworks today, which is an epic YouTube channel, you should definitely check it out. And he suggested that this can be a very useful tool for this sort of utility. So I thought I'd give it a try, and it's making a lot less mess and a lot less dust than the grinder. I could almost do it without a mask, I reckon. There's very, very little dust compared to a grinder. So anyway, I'm gonna move this blade around and we'll keep at it. Look at that. That there is all water. That's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Wow. Alright, we're almost done, I think. And that is rot. That's not even wood. At this point, that is powder. Knew this screwdriver would come in handy one day. All right, let's have a closer look. So what's interesting is you see this side here, which clearly has only ever had the one hole drilled in it, which is for that cleat that was on the back, is actually the most intact. Like that's actually, as much as it's delaminated at the top, it's quite solid at the bottom. As you move across, towards the bottom of the hull, it still feels the same. But at the top, where obviously water's seeped through, not so much the case. And then this side, which had the bung drilled through, obviously saw a lot of water, to the point where I'm touching fiberglass, not plywood. That's pretty well just fiberglass. So, very interesting. We're going to try and get all this out, let the cleanup begin. So I basically just took this, that was mounted there, smashed it with the big mallet a few times, because it's rotting out. Very easy. So they both came out. Unfortunately it wasn't recording, but you get the idea. Well, I guess the blessing in the situation is that when you've got a rotten transom, it comes away from the shell pretty nicely, really. I mean, disgusting and horrible and the worst thing to see in the world, but ultimately it came off quite nicely. So obviously that'll have to be sanded right back, but I've got a nice shell now I can ply to and glass to for a new transom. So it needs obviously a lot of cleaning up and getting rid of the remainder of the existing shell, but happy with that. Alright, well, I've gotten quite a lot of the wood off the transom here. Interestingly, there is still a coating of plywood, so it's obviously split through the middle of the plywood, not delaminated between the fiberglass and the plywood. So I did hit it with a belt sander, and I can get it back, but I might either put real heavy grit sandpaper on or actually try and hit it with a chisel and get the bulk of it off. So that's the plan in the short term. But now it's time to do the big cleanup process and get all this out of the boat as a starting point while I work out what next. We're going to cut back some of this floor section and see what's under there. Alright guys, well, I've made a discovery. Do we want the good news or the bad news? I think I'm going to give you the good news. The good news is, if you're enjoying this series, I think there's going to be a lot more videos. The bad news is that I can see a rotten stringer. So I just cut a tiny little square. Means I'm going to have to cut a lot more open now and check it out, but I'll show you guys. Look at this. So I initially found out that there was a problem because when I poured water in the boat, it suddenly started gushing out of the center bung there, which you can't get to from this sort of subfloor. So I knew there was a leak somewhere, and it turned out that all the fiberglass along here had delaminated, so I just cut that strip off. But you can see it wasn't in great shape. And there's a separation there, and then just cut this little inspection hole. And there is a stringer that I can basically break in half. So I know you can't see much, but what that tells me is there is work to be done. So there you go. That means the floor's coming out. I would have preferred not to have had to do that, but here we are. So anyway, might actually cut a bit more of the floor out and see what that really looks like. To do the transom, I've got to cut this section out anyway, so I might do that now. It'll help me get all of the rest of the solid plywood that's basically like sandwiched in and epoxied in. It'll help me get that out anyway if I get the floor out. So you guys are seeing it as it happens. I wish that wasn't the case, but that is definitely the case. So we'll keep at it. All right, well now we're gonna get some real insight. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Look at that. That piece of fiberglass, and that is fiberglass, that's not wood, has just got like stuff growing on it. Pretty disgusting. And as I look down in here, well, the good news is the actual floor itself, I mean it's fiberglass, but it feels solid. The bad news is there's plenty of wood in there, which means that that stringer is falling apart. Much as I'm sad to say it, it's all coming out. Very interesting. Right, we'll keep going, see what else we can do. If I reckon, wow, now this gets very interesting. I reckon that's the original floor. And someone's fiberglassed a plywood floor directly over the top of it. Because that's yellow with white. Dude, that's yellow with the white fleck. Which means that this appears to have just been epoxied directly down over the top of the whole thing. Which obviously makes it feel very solid, and it's why I felt like it wasn't rotten. It was literally glass directly to the existing floor. Because that's fiberglass, that's yellow fiberglass. The discoveries. I don't know, maybe if you're a boat builder, you'd know a lot more than me. I don't know much about this. I'm discovering this as I go. By no means am I an expert. I'm not pretending to be an expert. I'm learning as I go. You can tell I've got cheap tools. Not a trade. Don't really know what I'm doing. Just trying to work it out. But man, that's a pretty big learning if that's the case. It looks like that's been dropped directly onto an existing floor. Who would have thought? It also explains the delamination, because the top floor was glassed directly onto the existing gel coat, which obviously isn't going to be as good a connection as if that gel coat had been grinded back to glass. That's why. The question is, was that done to hide the wrecked floor and try and get a quick... I mean, but then you'd spend so much money in glass to do that. It couldn't be the case. Maybe it's just done for rigidity. Rather than fix the problem, they've just glassed right over the top. Super, super interesting. Well, I've just found another kind of interesting discovery that I'd be curious to hear from some of you guys who know what you're doing. The supports that were running from the floor up to the transom, the two on either side, sort of had that 90-degree angle, weren't glassed to the actual hull of the boat. They were only glassed to the floor of the boat. I want to know if that's normal, because if it is, I'll definitely do that next time. It's a lot easier to glass it in on that flat surface, and after I've done the floor. But I'm curious to see if that's normal or not, because I've never seen that before. So basically, when I point down here, that's where that right angle support piece was, inside that insert. I can put my hand all the way under it, so it never went through to the actual hull. But maybe that's normal. Not sure. Anyway, I'm going to keep cutting this out and see what else we can learn. Well, the good news is there's some sections here where I can get all the way through to actual hull down there. So that's where the plywood transom was. So I need to get all that wood out ultimately, and probably trim back the skin here where I haven't gotten to it yet. That was under the subfloor. And I would also love, before this little section of the project is done, to get that top floor out, maybe even the bottom floor out. But if I get the top floor out, that's a great result. Tell you what, it's coming together. I mean, it's coming apart, but I'm actually getting kind of optimistic. I don't think the things that I thought were gonna take a long time have been okay. So, we'll see. I decided I was gonna cut a few little sections in the edge of the subfloor and just see how it was attached to the side. And what I worked out was, there's actually not much glass attaching the actual floor itself to the side of the boat. So then I was sitting there thinking, well, I can just run it around the edge with the grinder or with the multi-tool, the oscillating saw. And then I thought to myself, screw it, if there's not that much there, maybe I can just rip it out. And that sounds crazy because this thing is solid, but I got the circular saw, just the Ryobi battery one, and I've just gone 2 lines right down the middle. And I reckon if I lift that, I can pull out a lot of this floor. So we're just gonna try and do it right now. It wasn't the plan, but hell, let's just make it happen. And there you have it. Floor, glass, plywood that's effectively looks like it's been pretty well unsealed. And then that was at the back of the boat, that lip. The glass clearly never properly laminated to the edge of the, sorry about that focus there. Never properly laminated, it pulls around, but it's sort of raised off the corner. So there's a learning in curving the edges to get the glass to stick to it properly. But what's even more interesting is it looks like the actual floor itself had been cut out. There was just this back section here along the very back of the boat, but there's not much strength to this now, so I reckon if I zap right up both sides of this stringer here, which also looks like it's been attempted to be repaired, and there was a big flat platform on it, I reckon I can get that whole middle section out of the boat, and in turn get the 2 sides out quite quickly. So I'm gonna try and make that happen now. I might just start with an inspection hatch in the centre up here and see if it's the same setup, whether there's more support at the nose, or I doubt there is, but rather than just go up there with circular saw and risk, where it gets quite shallow here, risk cutting through the actual floor of the hull, I'd rather see how it works. But it's pretty interesting, pretty interesting. Alright, so the surprises keep coming. I've zapped up the centre of the floor, lifted out that centre strip to see what's going on above the stringer, and I've learned a lot. I keep learning things about this boat, or like coming up with a hypothesis and then validating or invalidating it pretty quickly. So basically, this is where we're at. So at the back of the boat here, obviously when you cut through, we saw there was an original floor underneath, and this floor had been basically just glassed on over it. That's where the delamination had appeared. As you came across, cut through, found this original stringer. However, that original stringer looks like that. Now, I thought that was part of the original stringer. Turns out it's definitely not. So what's happened is someone has come along, cut out the original floor, raised it up with this stuff. That looks like a bit of hardwood on some pine. Actually, that might even be a few bits of stuff laminated together, but that's definitely pine there. And then what's happened is they've run that along there and basically glassed this subfloor, which is just plywood. You can see there, really just plywood, straight down over top of the existing floor with the centre cut out to raise up on the stringers. Now, I know this for certain now because when you come up here, what I've learned is the original floor is actually there. So that is a yellow floor with white fleck. There's about a 10 to 15 centimetre void, a few inches for the Americans, and that's the floor that I thought was the floor, interestingly. So you can see down below that, that's the original stringer. Now when I stood on that stringer, that broke right there, so obviously we're rotten. What I'm curious about is whether the person who did this work knew the stringer was rotten, so they cut out enough of the original floor that they could get a good look at it, and then they've gone, rather than fix the stringer, they've put existing stuff on top of it. You can tell this is all aftermarket because, you know, that's the only glass on it. So they've literally got these just pieces of glass as supports just to hold it to the original stringer, and then they've just dropped a new floor directly on top of it and glassed it in. Probably the logic was, well, if the stringer's rotten, this will get us another couple of years out of the boat. This is, you know, very thick plywood, this floor, and that's glassed all the way up the edge of the boat to here, which, again, this is another thing that I saw in the previous video that I thought was really interesting, that there was glass over the yellow. So obviously that happened aftermarket. So these are all the things that we start to learn. We start to learn that this is definitely not original, that the original one was down there, that it was cut out, loaded onto with this in a reasonably average home job, and subfloor put it over the top of that. Crazy interesting. The one thing they didn't do that they should have done is the transom, because that was absolutely rotten out. So what it looks like is someone's tried to go, oh, well, we'll get another year or 2 or 3 or 4 out of this boat by just locking it all together with a big thick floor. If you only had a light outboard on it, I'm sure that would have been all right. And that's what they've done. Unfortunately, for me, when I look at building an epic boat, that's not good enough. So what we're doing is everything's coming out, and I guess this gives us an excuse for a bit of a clean slate. We can look at where we really want the floor to be, whether we go right back to original, which is way down here, that's part of the original floor there, runs across, or whether we go up a little bit higher. That's all up to us. We can put the stringer height whatever we want. We can run whatever supports we want to the transom, which means we can load up an outboard if we want to put a big one on there. There's heaps of cool options. So more and more work to do, but the benefit is rotten wood is easy to get out. So that's going to also be a positive. We can definitely get that straight out. So all in all, I guess it's positive, I guess. We keep learning things. Iffy home job, right? Now, let's be real, I'm doing a home job as well, but I do intend on doing this properly, or as properly as I can without being a professional. So what that will mean in this case is proper glassed in stringers, proper glassed in transom. I've looked at, to those of you who can say, use something that's not going to rot in the future, like a Thermalite or something different. I hear you on that, I've thought about that. The reality is it's going to be cost prohibitive for a boat like this. It's not, like, as much as I hate to say it, it's not going to be worth putting in something that's going to last 40 years, because this whole, I don't think it's going to last 40 years. I also don't need it to. If I go a very, very good job, better than original, when I'm putting holes in or bolts in to run to, through the outboard or for the bungs, I'm going to do drill out a big hole, load it with epoxy, and then drill through the epoxy. So there's a whole bunch of things that I'll do that will make this boat effectively better than it originally was at a factory, right? Which should give us a really, really long lifespan. The thing that's important to me is that I know it's been done well and done right, and that's exciting. So onwards and upwards. We'll keep going, try and get this floor out. That's my next goal. can see along the edge, they've actually glassed in this rubber. I would imagine the idea of that was that would go against the edge of the boat, which would prevent it from rattling. I imagine. I'm not really sure, to be honest, but that's what it looks like at least. Either way, making progress. Alright, well that's me done for the day. So, I've been going for a few hours today, but it's been a good session. We've got the stringers, oh gosh, what's that, 99.9% out. So by that what I mean is I've ground down the edges of either side of it. I've pulled out as much of the wood as I can. There's a tiny bit left in there that will have to be hit with a grinder. The same with the transom. I would say we're probably, I mean, apart from actually using the belt sander to chew down this stuff here and get that back to glass like that or like that, there's bits of wood there that have to be sanded back. I don't think it's going to be too much work. Where it is going to be a bit of work is where the transom is soldered down here. So we have to grind that back around there and then pull out that bit of plywood, but that's all right, not too bad. And then yeah, you can see stringers 99% there. Got to go around the edge and properly grind back where the old floor was set in, so it was just edges all the way around, and tidy it up. But we're talking about putting stringer and a couple of cross supports or beams horizontally across the boat, which weren't there from new, but I figure why not make it a bit more structurally sound than it was. And yeah, it's coming together. Obviously that's after being vacuumed. There was plenty of dust here earlier, but that's what it looks like. Not bad for a day's work anyway, especially on something that less than a week ago didn't even have. And yeah, I've only spent really, what's a day and a half on it. So yeah, all in all, definitely a big project, but something that I would thoroughly recommend if you want to get in and learn. By no means am I pretending to be an expert. I actually have no idea what I'm doing, if I'm totally honest with you. I've just watched a lot of videos. I do not know how to glass properly. I know how to use epoxy resin to a point. So there's gonna be plenty that I'm gonna learn. Don't use this as an instructional video because it's not, because honestly, you'll learn more than me by going and watching much smarter people. I thoroughly recommend watching Boatworks today. That dude is a freaking legend, and I've learned a lot about the glassing from him, but realistically, I still am very light. So that's this video done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this project. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think I should be doing with this boat. I reckon it's going to be pretty sick when it's done. Don't forget to hit like and definitely hit the subscribe button and that little notification bell. I'm going to be posting quite a few videos for this build. It's not going to be like my last couple where I did 4 for the first build and 1 for the second build. This one's going to be incremental videos over time. So right now you're seeing this the day that I did the work. That's pretty well how close it is. So anyway, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys real soon. Cheers and catch you later.